Hey, folks. I come to share with you a spine-chilling story, something that was told to me by a friend of a friend. I know, it sounds like something out of a movie, but I swear this really happened. So, get ready for a dark journey, pull your blankets closer, and be prepared to get goosebumps. Have you ever watched those movies where a group of teenagers ventures into a mysterious forest and terrible things start happening? Well, this story is exactly like that, only it's real. Let's go back in time to an ordinary afternoon, in that same ominous forest we've all heard about. Imagine 6 fearless teenagers, Erick, Afonso, Luiz, Joel, Arthur, and Jeff, all with the inherent boldness of youth, always venturing into the forest that shadows their homes. Those tall trees, rays of sunlight sneaking through the leaves, forming a mosaic of light and shadow, the perfect setting for their antics. However, that day marked the beginning of something even their darkest dreams couldn't anticipate. There they were, engrossed in their youthful laughter, when they stumbled upon something that made them stop in their tracks. A skeleton, the kind we see in science books, hung like a macabre scarecrow from a lonely tree. And, of course, curiosity consumed them like a voracious flame. What was meant to be a curious discovery quickly turned into a disturbing game. They tied the skeleton to a tree and, armed with small stones, began to throw them as if daring death itself. Ah, youthful innocence, often leading us to dark places. As the days went by, the macabre play grew more intense. The stones that were once mere playthings gained a sinister purpose. They tore apart the already fragile skeleton. The skull cracked, the ribs broke, and laughter echoed through the forest like a disturbing soundtrack. Tired of the game, they sat on small tree stumps. But then something changed. A mist began to form, and day turned into night. Erick noticed and asked Arthur for the time on his watch, to which he promptly replied it was only 5 o'clock. They heard laughter, followed by the sound of bones breaking. The sound repeated, and when they looked towards the tree where the skeleton was hung, it was standing. In place of the dark eye sockets, there were now reddish eyes, and blood dripped from the broken parts. The boys screamed and ran from the scene, realizing that the skeleton was chasing them, growling and baring its horrifying teeth. Desperately, they managed to exit the forest, heading straight onto the asphalt in search of safety. They looked at each other, breathless and frightened, realizing Afonso was missing. They glanced at the forest and heard Afonso's desperate scream, followed by the roar of the skeleton echoing through the forest. It was then they realized that while they were on the asphalt, it was daytime, but in the forest, it was night. Terrified, they ran home seeking help for the friend taken by the skeleton. The police were called, and a search was conducted day and night in the forest. They found only one of Afonso's sneakers, and no sign of the skeleton the boys referred to. Psychologists tried to unravel the case, believing they had encountered a psychopath and that trauma had caused the 5 to see things that didn't exist, as if it were collective amnesia. The boys were never the same again, and they never returned to the site, except for the last time when they explained everything to the police. 3 years of pain for the families and psychological treatments for the boys passed. One fine day, while riding their bikes, they reached the same spot where they had managed to escape the forest on that terrible day. Suddenly, Afonso appeared, emerging from the forest, his face and body covered in blood. His eyes were wide with terror, and his steps were slow and unsteady. The boys abandoned their bikes. In the background, a girl at her doorstep watched in terror, screaming for her mother. The mother quickly opened the door to tend to her daughter and was confronted with the sight of Afonso, bathed in blood. They didn't touch him, but stood around him, a mix of terror and relief. Suddenly, a roar, similar to the skeleton's roar, echoed, and they all looked at each other. Afonso uttered a single sentence, "He came to get you." At that moment, a dense fog rolled in, enveloping the street, causing the boys to vanish into it. A deafening scream echoed all around, mingling with the desperate cries of the children. When the fog lifted, they were no longer there, only their lifeless bikes on the ground. To the deep bewilderment of the little girl's mother, who looked on in terror, unable to believe what had happened right before her eyes. She could still hear the horrifying screams of the children echoing and fading into the forest. After months and months of searching and vigil, the children were never found again. They say that in the forest, on foggy days, you can hear the demonic screams of the skeleton and the terrifying cries of the children. And so, the chilling tale of the 6 missing teenagers became a legend and a sinister warning that some games can lead to terrifying consequences. So stay vigilant, my friends, for the forest hides secrets that none of us can fully comprehend.